set aside 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. It's hourly for our community.
Citizen's arrest does not require you for anything, buddy. That's why there's citizen's arrest. I had reasonable grounds to make the arrest.
This is the town of Caledonia. It's a historic rural community in southern Ontario located along the banks of the Grand River. Autumn in the town means annual festivals and trout fishermen. But beyond the town, beyond the fields and farms, there is another community. Six Nations, also known as Reserve Number 40. And at its center is the village of Ohsweken. While its amenities seem familiar, it's governed with a different set of rules. Six nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy banded together long ago to protect their territories. Now, they work together to protect what territory they have left. Only a small fraction of the land surrounding the Grand River that was promised to them in the Haldimand Treaty. The Haldimand Treaty was established in 1784 between Captain Joseph Brant, a Mohawk leader, and Sir Frederick Haldimand, British Governor-in-Chief. The treaty proclaimed that Six Nations be given 6 miles of land along either side of the Grand River as a thank you for serving as allies to the Crown during the American Revolution. In the centuries following the treaty, Six Nations land was taken away by squatters, settlers, and corporations, all without Crown intervention. Phil Montour is a land claims historian and a Mohawk living on Six Nations Reserve.
So within this Haldimand tract, it's called the Haldimand Deed, Haldimand Treaty. It's 6 miles on either side of the Grand River, as I stated, from Lake Erie to its source. It's roughly a territory of 950,000 acres. And right from the get-go, there was actually a short change of the survey of the land. They left out roughly 250,000 acres up to the source of the Grand River. So right from the start of trying to keep their promises, we were betrayed.
In late 2005, Henko Industries Limited registered plans for a subdivision called Douglas Creek Estates on land that fell within the Haldimand Treaty parameters. Decades later, when construction began, Six Nations people decided enough was enough. On February 28, 2006, a group of people from Six Nations and the Confederacy occupied Henko's construction site.
Started out as an education forum, but then it escalated. And the frustration just poured out. That's frustration. We should not have to be forced into those situations to protect our lands. When you get that, when that happens, you can't control it. And that's what's dangerous.
Tension mounted between occupiers and townspeople. Then, violence erupted. Protesters dug up the highway and destroyed a hydro transformer, cutting power to the surrounding counties. The Liberal government of Ontario then instructed OPP officers not to arrest protesters, but to serve as a human barrier between occupiers and townspeople.
It's basically the Oka situation. Fortunately, no one got killed at Caledonia. Same with the Ipperwash situation. Fortunately, no one got killed at Caledonia like what happened at Ipperwash.
Gary McHale became involved in the fight against the occupation at Douglas Creek Estates in late 2006. He recently published a book documenting his experiences.
I started hearing about how OPP officers were being kidnapped, the power station was firebombed, residents were assaulted and put in the hospital, highways were ripped up for weeks at a time, and people needed passports to travel to and from their own home. It became clear that the Liberal McGuinty government and the OPP were allowing serious crimes to take place against people simply because of their race. And that's unacceptable in this country. I thought we had done away with this kind of attitude.
McHale founded CanAce, Canada Advocates for Charter Equality, a small band of people who want police to protect the community of Caledonia from the occupiers.
Well, we have had a political view for the past 40 years that white people are evil, Native people are always nice people, that they're always the underdog, they're always the one being abused, and Native people never actually commit violence and crime. And if they do, it's because the white guy, he caused them. And so we've had this in both political parties, all the political parties, and that has filtered down through our police force. And that's because even the media in this country will not portray Native people are the ones who create violence against non-Natives.
But the events at Douglas Creek were documented by the media. On July 4, 2006, the Ontario government purchased the land from Henko Industries for $16 million and permitted the occupiers to remain on the land. In 2014, members of the Haudenosaunee erected a fence along the property line.
I don't really care. Whatever keeps Haldimand County smaller.
I think it has to do with the Native situation, but to be honest with you, I really don't know too much about it.
But to fully understand the tension, to fully understand the fence, one needs to understand what happened after the Haldimand Treaty was signed.
We had set aside roughly 4 blocks of land that were to be mortgaged for 999 years. And we wanted people on there. I guess that's what has to be understood. We wanted people on there, and through these leases they would be paying us a continuous revenue. And we wouldn't need anything from anyone else. They would run our government. They would pay for our education, pay for our health, pay for everything the normal Canadian today takes for granted.
By the 1850s, the mortgage payments stopped altogether. The era of civilizing the Indian was already underway. No longer needing them as allies in war, a newly developing Canada adopted the British Empire's initiatives to civilize Indigenous people. The next century saw Canada subjecting all First Nations to racism, cultural assimilation, and abuse. After the First and Second World Wars and the Korean War, Canada began to review and amend its Indian policies. By 1952, Six Nations was permitted to hire a legal team to investigate land claims. In the 1970s, Montour and Six Nations hired an accounting firm to track the income of all of the land associated with the treaty.
And there was a very wonderful person there who went through and did a financial accounting of the money that was transferred. It was in fact transferred there, and it was kept there and accumulated. And this dear lady went through and did a complete accounting and had all of her findings notarized and sent a whole entire report back to us. That the money was from that Block 2 was actually went to Coots and Company. Canada brought it back, petitioned to have it back with one of the conditions that Coos Company put in there, that it's Six Nations money, it'd be used for Six Nations. And oh yeah, this is sure. But when the money come back, we find out, boom, it was used to run the country.
The money was used to offset government debt, build roads in York, fund the Law Society of Upper Canada, and save McGill University from bankruptcy. Canada has collected an estimated $4 billion in tax revenue off claims currently in process.
And we're sitting here, the underlying title holder, and they got us begging.
They've appealed internationally for help on behalf of all First Nations peoples in Canada.
Our treaty territories. Call upon Canada, in conjunction with Six Nations, to create truly neutral dispute resolution tribunals to resolve legal disagreements relating to our land rights.
It's not an issue about the land claim. They could have done everything they wanted about the land claim. They did not have to choose violence.
We're not the ones breaking the law now, but we are the ones who are being frustrated, and we are the ones that are taking actions out of frustration. We shouldn't have to do that.
230 years after the Haldimand Treaty was formed, the Haudenosaunee are finishing a gate on the Douglas Creek Estate's land. They now call it Canonstaton, which in Mohawk means the protected place. Blake Boynaberry is a Cayuga chief. He was involved in the original land claims of the former Douglas Creek Estates.
It's our land now. We assume responsibility of it, and we're going to continue to move forward on it. So that's where we are today. This is one of the final stages in the building of this fence around the property.
As evening falls, the Haudenosaunee complete the gate and celebrate. Although the gate is a peaceful symbol, the actions and events from Douglas Creek have not been forgotten by all.
They are terrorists. If you're going to commit terrorist acts, you're a terrorist. If I rob a bank, I'm a bank robber. Okay?
Were you trying to keep out with the fence?
Well, the big guy, he was number one, and now he's people behind him, and they eventually come around the property, and then you get the police involved, who are, they say they want to keep the peace. There's a lot of politics involved in this that nobody wants to really face up to.
They're sending a message to the Ontario government and to Haldimand County that they don't control the property, the native protesters do. It's meant to be a message.
I'm always hopeful that justice will prevail. I mean, we're in Canada. Justice has to prevail at some time. They must realize we're not going anywhere. We've got to protect these lands for our children.